it's concealed already, and I can see that some occupations are not taken into account according to. I propose that this is special tax law, and we need to have this special purpose separate amendments. Other laws like we have all we have. So, Euro-Atlantic integration. Well, this is an indicative message for the European Union on our movement for removal power. I understand that. Well, I don't have any kind of explanations. I cannot do anything. Why President simply provided his proposals apart. The only justification is that he's entitled to. Okay. When we actually built this, we were trying to create this law. It has to come at 1 and 3 laws added to it, amendments to other laws, and in the debate, our experts, EU experts, we actually created this model. So we had a lot of time actually very happily just to, I don't know, not just to harmonize, but make it function and then not related to those issues in the area which are our area, our sector is more illegal one, regulated, so we don't need to use these unified models for our telecom sector. What I'd like to add, well, maybe someone wants to know what we have in the future. Okay, we'll ask you, please, the comparison is critical because we don't have it yet. Lawyers from the office and others, well, I don't understand what that is. It's like constantly we will play this ping pong, we'll have to have it up something, sends to president, and give it back, and like the others. What are the others? So we will try to get some clear answers, like this and others, this extra population, some amendments to their recommendations, and we will try to move, and I think that this year, definitely vote for it. Finalize the process. I just want to destroy this. If stakeholders already writing in Facebook, there's something. Hey, don't try this nonsense. Okay, I really understand that you want actually to get a medal. Like this is fully and that this is not all actually your head, but there is. I think this is just specific education on what adopted or not. Okay, I will be so grateful to the community. Oksana, thank you for this. Alexander. Great. Sharing this actually wanted to tell you about the history of this sharing that we offered. So, there was you actually tell me yes, but so I offered this a couple of months ago, and even we did not have like expectations or hope of actually adoption. Actually happened to go to Ireland with so if we had it online, is never how much our and the right and then right to personal data. So I remind you, and the Constitution had recognized it procedure of appointing so regulator, well, it's not the first one, and that was having additional matter. I tried to, I'm sorry, but someone's talking. I tried actually to separate judges and analyze from the government. And like, I don't have access to, so I will still let part of the I just want to add these if it's so not already. So I just want to, where the letter is, have a letter written by Mr. Mikola, which is the representative of Ukraine in European Union, October 28th, population, social capacity, independence, autonomy of structures is actually one of the criteria for us to achieve the strategic aim. So we speak right now about conclusion of agreements with EU, dependence of regulators, and integration into European digital market. Europeans were also unpacking champagne, actually, because they have big glasses though. Actually, I wanted to celebrate with us, but it did not happen, unfortunately. Thank you so much. Like the best performance you did that I don't know how to present her. This person really, there's, I guess, it's stakeholders, and I was so shocked that I actually heard all this like this approach and negotiators actually leave the table. It's when they leave the table not actually sticking to their own, but when they have the feeling of, well, it's satisfied. I actually, I have to get information from global. As a journalist, I was this just that's the worth of how they stakeholders and all what I heard to say. I was so not to just Mandela on one of the adoption was a quantum digital market, and I feel what's happening right now there. There are a lot of projects, and I so we are on the application of the microphone. Yeah. So thank you so much. And my interpretation, okay, stakeholders must be equally happy with that. Absolutely satisfied. This is a perfect situation at which I really wanted to get. And I can prove that so for preparing shampoo, even not one bottle, but many of them. So also at my own, and I really celebrate the adoption of this law, the signature of the law. The draft law, very important. So really, really hard to exaggerate its importance. I will not repeat myself, and I was shocked. I was shocked, and I do hope that we will have this article, and the committee will be able to handle this how to take all the remarks and stuff for us all to be equally happy anyway. So I really do hope that we'll have, I expect that to happen. So I want to inform you about the processes that we have preparing to. So we will have a bilateral body of this position and it's performance conference, it's bilateral cooperation in the digital area, and we do. Therefore, this committee to update the roadmap for integration of Ukraine in the digital market. European Union, we are updating for the account of this multi-phase process. European Union launched actually in 2018. Transferred it to the consideration of European Commission phase 1. It was completed. I want to remind you the decision of European Commission. This document, more than 10 directorates actually were working on that. It related very highly recommendations, and after which the Annex 17.3 updated the association agreement. Right now, we expect to formalize the process. So, from the technical point of view, we already confirmed everything, proved everything, harmonized everything. So the implementation of the law 3014, we have this in the roadmap. We have this 17.3 updated annex to the association agreement. So this is not just our obligation. This is not just something like the best practice way that we need to implement. This is an obligation. And it was correctly told by Mr. Alexander that this is not just a copy-paste approach. Okay? So this is a directive way. Is approved by the directive, not the regulation. Even the countries of the EU, they implement it. So they pick the format of implementation of the provisions, taking into account their national peculiarities, national system, and so on. So we hope that this will be solved somehow, because I can tell for quite a long time how important this project is, but you understand it.
I would also like to comment the result of the summit Ukraine EU in the digital sphere. What important things were achieved. So for the first time in the application of summit, there is something mentioned on the support of Ukraine by EU and approximation to the EU market. But if you trace the dynamics of the statements of the summit for the past 3 years, you can see it very clearly, because even if this phrase means that there was big work done, and European Commission, took the obligation to support us in the statement. And also it's about approximation of legislation and institutional capacity. So finally, our regulator can see is working according to European approaches, has the balance, and our approaches are not too different from the European, from those approaches the European regulator is using. So I would like to underline that this is due to our law on electronic communication and all the secondary legislation that were to be adopted. And third law of the digital sphere, it's the liability of both parties to prepare by the end of 2020 a common action plan in the area of trustful services. And it's a very ambitious provision. For the entire year, we have been working to make a record of it, of this commitment. This agreement So the European Union has never concluded such an agreement with any other country but for Ukraine. But since we have implemented the regulation, the EU regulation back in 2017 on the transport services, we are the only country on the Eastern Partnership who already are to adopt all the secondary legislation. First, we need the checklist of the EU, we need the mission, so that they could tell us what else is to be done. But I would like to underline the difference. Such agreement in the sphere of electronic communication. That agreement is just like the association agreement, but in the sphere of the trustful services. It's very ambitious and very important, and opens lots of possibilities for development of both business and brings many benefits for the citizens. And it's actually the open door to the market of EU, the simplified access to it that can be the role model for other spheres. It's a horizontal approach that is going to bring also the possibility to finally have a practical benefit from the association agreement from other operational processes, because it's not just papers, it's not just laws adoption, but both citizens and business are to feel the benefit from it. How did they benefit from signing this agreement? That's where we can achieve it. But not a fast process, but we already have a clear record of commitments to work on it. I can say that there is no algorithm of actions. It is something new, and we will together brainstorm with the European officials how to do it and how they're going and in which direction we shall move. So if the code of electronic communication in Ukraine and in the EU countries is to be implemented, we are choosing the way that we're going to implement the norms, but the regulation in EU, it's the norms of direct action. And in the EU countries that have access to the market, it doesn't require implementation. When we adopt the legal act, the secondary legislation, we have to have the legal equivalency in this area to have the access to the market. Now the amendments are prepared, and we are sensitively tracing it and to keep track of it, because the mutual access to the market is impossible if there are some legal divergencies. If there are different norms, then it's not going to work. That's why I wanted to underline this difference. Another thing I wanted to mention, maybe I'm already out of time, but I have to do this fast. Right now, on support of the Renaissance Foundation, we are not limited in time. Okay, thank you so much. The research, the economic study is prepared on the advantages of integration of Ukraine into a single digital market. I'm not an economic specialist, but different calculations are made, and this was never done before. And I thank the Renaissance Foundation for support of this study, and the preliminary results of this study, they showed that the increase of GDP of Ukraine will be up to 5% due to integration to digital market, and also, integration to telecom market, which is the core of it. And a few words about the regional processes that are taking place in the framework of the partnership. It is also important because many processes are just complementing each other, and we do everything possible to provide this complementarity. This digital market in the framework of Eastern Partnership also requires Eastern Partnership, and we have several pilot projects, and we have the completion of the pilot Ukraine-Poland on e-delivery. It's a platform where the invoices are sent in electronic form between members of business of Poland and Ukraine. It was technically tested, and now they prepared video recommendations, legal recommendations, what Ukraine is to do to enable it. And on this stage, and with the other EU member states, what we are to do. Also, I would like to say there's a big interest from the business. They are very interested and curious, and different consulting companies are addressing us who have hundreds of clients, and they're interested in this not only with company but with other EU member states. And now, after this successful piloting, we are going to do the pilot project with Armenia to show how to do this and to make a road for Armenia as well. So we are taking the leadership positions among countries within framework of this partnership. And you know that we have the our association agreement is comprehensive, and no other country in the Eastern Europe has such a possibility. They do not have the legal framework to do this. We also have the pilot e-signature, work on it, and right now with Moldova and then with the member states. So there is other potential pilot in which we're interested, and I would like to say that in the framework of the project for digital, the European Commission is interested a lot for us to share the experience that we've already gained from the Eastern Partnership. And the preparation of the text regional roaming agreement is completed, and I hope that by the end of the year it will be signed. It refers to the decrease of tariffs for roaming between the Eastern Partnership countries, and then there will be negotiations to conclude the agreement between regions. And then there will be the finalization of the text. And very brief about regional spectrum. And the work is being also completed on preparation of this original agreement, and I hope that at the beginning of the following year, we'll have good results. So the process is ongoing, and we are having right now this systemic work going on. Last year we had a lack of data, and the data was analyzed for the past 3 or 4 years. But there was insufficient number for us to be connected to I-10, but our ambition to be connected to DESI. DESI can include any third countries of the European Union, of the European Economic Zone, and given those processes of even comprehensive association, the difference lies in the fact that in this system, the data is collected from the secondary sources, and if there is the index, when the country is connected in this, the data are gathered through state statistics service of Ukraine through the official system and so on. So we are working on this. The process is very difficult and complicated, but we cooperate with the state statistics service of Ukraine, and we shall proceed working. Thank you, and sorry that I took more time, and I'm ready to answer the questions. Yes, Alexander would like to know. Okay, then I would like to thank you. I'm really glad that you have highlighted it from all these angles, but I have a request. Can you please send us the link for the study that you have mentioned of the Renaissance Foundation, on the economic influences of integration of Ukraine to the single digital market. We will place it on the website of IGF-UA, on our website of our organization. And I have two more questions. Maybe they are a bit provocative. So the first question is, how many pages will your roadmap take of what you are to approve in December, I mean? And the second question, on PGI Forum, I saw the presentation of the representatives from your ministry who insisted on the amendments that I just think I discussed yesterday after before this document is going to be changed in Europe. But if you remember, it was the topic of our discussion, a hot discussion, with many of those who are present here today on account whether we should approve the directives from 2002 and 2009 directives, which are in the Annex 17.3 to Association Agreement, or should we start work on the code, European Code of Electronic Communication that included those directives? My question is it logical? Does it make sense to approve the changes or amendments of the old version, European version, EIDAS, if I pronounce it correctly, or should we start work on the new one? Yesterday we had a section on cybersecurity, and parallel there was a meeting on the highest level on the governance that was organized by European Commission, and I was trying to listen both events. Of course, I didn't hear much, but a lot was, there were many amendments suggested. How will we work with this? For your questions, it consists of two parts. So first, ADAS regulations, which refer to trustful services. I would say that preparing for changes that will be work, we are already preparing. When the regulation is adopted or any European legal act, the EU gives transposition term to Ukraine. So this is the time period during which Ukraine can study it. So it can be a year or 2 years, and we have to, to based on it. Then it comes into force. It comes into force right away, but there is a period of transposition.
So just like a proposal to the regulation, just to prepare the study, we need to analyze it, and also to stipulate with an impact analysis. We need to do it in advance. The drafting process, legislative process, there is a bit different, so it's more stable. If there is a proposal to regulate the directive, 99.9% that there will be no surprises or no substantial amendments, because they have the consultation process, quite a extended one. Every draft law, every proposal, they don't have big surprises at the end, usually. So we need to prepare, of course, when it comes to the Code of Electronic Communications. Of course, there is no sense actually to implement these acts. We have it in the updated annex. It's not, there is no sense. The project 3014 is a revolutionary platform. It takes into account the latest approaches, including Europeans. So, really a breakthrough. This is our quantum leap, and I don't hide my champagne, but still, I do believe that this will take. So, concerning the pages you asked, pages, I don't remember the pages, I remember more than 200 measures were there. We have the strategy, integration to the digital market in descriptive part, and the implementation plan. So this all is called the roadmap, and approximately 180, like almost 200 measures are mentioned, and all the bodies, executive board bodies, the first phase, had the first stage of consultation, on the impact analysis, also the report, the EU, the mission, working with the digital sector. So actually, they provided in summer this huge report to us, 125 pages, just hundreds actually of annex texts analyzed our harmonization process and provided recommendations and legal and institutional. Very interesting document, and in this updated roadmap, we did this. So we informed all ministries, and right now I have the second stage of consultations. A couple of inconformities are there, and we actually tried to do this. And I do hope that next week we will finally get this finalized version and send it to the committee of the association. After this, what's important? Thank you for asking this question. So, concerning the pages, after actually within the committee, the updated roadmap will be adopted. So, we initiate the amendments to the action plan. An association agreement. This will be a bilateral agreement. A grant for us to bring amendments. Finally, so, okay. I'm so grateful. I understand that you have to leave us right now. Maybe someone from your ministry will stay because for conclusion, formulate what we discussed. If you are ready right now, if you're ready to give us one or two statements, I would be so glad. Just not to lose your voice elsewhere. Okay, thank you. I just want to express my gratitude to you, Alexander, to the whole committee of the digital transformation, and to Ms. Oksana, and my colleagues from the ministry, and everyone who does take care of the digital area. It's like a very big family with joint values, with joint vision, and it's really important. It's really, really important. I feel it, and I think together we will make it. So we will move this further, and I really want the digital area to be the pilot one and actually drag everything forward. I will not actually tell which of these, but we have. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry. I will try just to conclude my conclusion. So the Euro integration process of Ukraine, entering of the market of the European Union, is irreversible. This process is irreversible. No objections. Something that we will do. No objections. And integration to the digital market may become this pilot project, which will, let's say, accumulate for other sectors in this way. So, no objections. We'll discuss it in the last 2 or 3 minutes of the section. If someone leaves, okay, no objections so far. Very well, thank you. So, I would like to put the word to Anatoly. She will have a little bit from negative assessment of all this your integration aspiration. And I'd like Mr. Anatoly not just to comment on the draft law itself, but maybe depends on how exactly we're the interests of all stakeholders taken into account during the drafting process. So you will present on behalf of small internet providers. Please specify and maximum attention to this, please. Good afternoon, colleagues. So truly, I'm the only one, I guess, who did not plan to open the champagne bottle. I do think that Internet Association considers the same. So we stand for, we're absolutely for, we support all the zero integration process, but we always have these huge achievements always have certain obstructions, and there are some problems all the time, and impediments. Small and medium internet providers actually, I think, will be a part of that impediment. As Ms. Yulia told, no one actually organized any kind of economic study or research or whatever, and I didn't see any analysis of how some of the law provisions, what consequences will be there after it comes into effect, and vice versa. Like, we had questions, for example, colleagues, I don't know, when I'm not an economic expert in economy and not a chemist. At some point, you understand if you mix alkali and acid, you'll have consequences, specific ones, yeah. And we just need to take care of before we actually mix it. So, in the conditions when we have this dumping strategy, the big players, let's say they have dumping strategies and long-term strategies, and we initiate regulation of infrastructure and certain rules, this will have consequences. I think these are equally we did not even get any commands. We cannot get these commands. We cannot get opinions from anyone. If you take the recommendation of the president, well, it's a little strange. But one piece where it's written that multiple disadvantages make it impossible to understand the law, and that it will be impossible to implement some of the provisions. Yes, we do agree with that. We have the same vision. But when it comes to your question, Oksana, about the process, as we left this process at the early stage or not, we had a couple of iterations. When we prepared the law on electronic communications, so like we had different stages of preparation, joint and individual, and in all of these three working groups we took part. So we took part up to the half of the process, because all our big remarks concerning the infrastructure, access, regulation, our attempt to explain that we do not solve basically. Yulia and Alexander say that this is the implementation of the European directive, and it must take place with consideration of local specificity. But our local specificity does not solve any problems. So, regulation of access to infrastructure, private property of operators and providers. So this is the only thing that creates new problems. May potentially. In our opinion, it will create even more. Then there will be no, but the expected profit is so small. I don't know. The expected benefit from the implementation of law. So we were so dissatisfied with the process of organization that we had to leave the working group, at least to draw attention to this. It had no effect. So the developers, the legislators simply did not take this into account, did not reach this goal, but we have some expectations and we have some promises. Also, so what we have in 3014 in this draft law, so they will try to eliminate these provisions in the following draft laws. At least have these promises. And it's interesting how it actually will evolve, because now we have the president's veto, and it's quite an ambiguous formulation we have. With this huge criticism from the president, maybe we'll be able to bring some amendments, and we will bring something that frees us. And so I'm very careful. But it was your lobby. It was your lobby for the veto. No. Do not please exaggerate our influence, which we would love to. Not totally. And I have a clarifying question. Unfortunately, I wasn't there starting from the very first day. in this working group. But I heard that you offered very constructive approach. This is not the situation. Our situation, maybe you'll tell us. You offered a lot of things. Even in three working groups, and we're experts in recommending approaches, but Oksana pushed me to say that yes, we offered, but nobody listened to us. I know one is listening. I don't know. Alexander is listening. I get it. Alexander will get this. I'm pushing you. I'm pushing you right now. I do support Yulia her activity. She's very attentive. She's listening to everyone. She's very attentive. Really, her multi-stakeholder approach is working. But my question is about the number of pages of this program. If someone will recommend the European Commission actually presents these roadmaps at 1 or 2 pages, a very precise description of current situation based on exclusively specific practical research surveys. They fix the goal that certain transformations and a couple of possible alternative ways on how to reach the goal. And just on the basis of this roadmap, we start actually these multi-stakeholder consultations. For example, that users are so happy to see IGF-UA to have small business, big business players that cover governmental stakeholders, and finally we have the unified voice from the state. I don't know whether it's good or bad, but at least this is already fixed. I mean, and only now we start working. I will expect Alexander to tell something in the consultation. When we someday will have this multi-stakeholder consultation, I'll be so happy to get this. If you support me, I will be so much grateful. I think we all really want to have just the good guys without the bad guys. Yeah, the bad guys to be out. I saw Yulia. Yulia, maybe you want to say something. Alexander is there. So please say now because Oleg will get the floor. So just a couple of words.
We do not have clear requirements, of course. So in the agreement association, there are no such requirements. And either there are, like white books, green books, but we have a different approach. In the general part, we are to describe the goals, the expected findings, and in detail to provide the competency of all the ministries. We needed that because the strategic document is very ambitious, and since we have never had a document like that before, we had to clearly define the roles and agree that with the European side. And when in 2018 there were all the consultancy provided, and now we are updating given the recommendations from the EU. It's not something new, it's just the update on the feedback and report of the mission of the after evaluation that has worked for a year. So that's why it's a big document for us, because we didn't want to have several documents. We have gathered all into one, and on the basis of it, we are developing these matters further on and understand who's responsible for what. So it was a lot simpler to do this, given our situation, to prepare one comprehensive document that will underline all the directions of integration. Thank you. Thank you. And Alexander Isamin wants to comment as well. And on my, I also have a comment. And I couldn't participate in person in the work of this working group, I have communicated with representatives of German providers, and they were very interested through this European Code of Electronic Communication. And all the fairy tales that in Germany there is one or three operators are not true, because Lutz, who was sitting next to me, demonstrated me the registry of 4,300, I think, and this registry is not done by the regulator, but it helps all the operators to join their efforts, and I'm convinced that there is not, nobody even speaks about, problem with the personal life. So now I will give word to Anatoly and then to Alexander. I just wanted to comment. You can check the statistics of ITU on Poland. You can check closer to our borders and to the dates of the director's introduction. You can see how the number of working places decreases in the field and the number of providers very dramatically. From 75,000 to 45,000 in Poland, from 25, if I'm not wrong, to 7,000 in Lithuania. So there are different examples. The closer the mentality to us, so people perceive this directive in their own way, and they implement it in the way they see it. Actually, I want to ask you to send us links to those studies that you have mentioned, because maybe we can't find them ourselves. Maybe we could place them on our website for a wider discussion. Alexander, I would like to support Anatoly in the part of mentality. I'm independent right now expert from Russia, and unfortunately for us, Russia is very promoted in the area of internet governance. We do not have those processes that you have discussing the laws. Alexander, I can't hear you. Can anyone else hear you? Yes, my connection was bad. If you want right now to finish commenting multi-stakeholder approach, you don't want to. No, I just wanted to compliment your multi-stakeholder approach as compared to the Russian one. But in general, I'd like to say that in Russia, they have adopted and implemented a lot of that regulation that the EU is introducing in their countries. And especially what you are going through in the framework of this integration, we can't hear you again. We lost you again. Am I the only one who can't hear Alexander? Please call. Okay, then I will try to do it without video. So you have Russia as an example of a similar regulation according to its content, but different regulation which doesn't work. And its Russian propaganda is frightful to Russians. Like, what do you want it to be like Ukraine? And it doesn't matter what they're talking about. So you have a chance to show how the regulation of the telecommunications of universal services does not successfully work on the example of Russia. Please take a look at the we'll still have the time to, because you have to listen first to information. So, Alexander published has written additional transformation of Ukrainian parliament and had about 100 members. And of course, I think of me as a representative of the organization that had no private or state interests. Maybe there were one or two representatives like me, but still, we did not have organizations that had mandate to recruit and interest the users. Our organization can represent the interests of consumers who have 270 members. So on behalf of Ukraine, can't say but I still think it's important to raise those questions that are not solved by private state sector. Dear Oleg, the floor is yours. Thank you for the invitation. It is indeed an interesting aspect because we specialize in the e-commerce studies because the biggest complaint of the food service is for this component. And now I prepare the trade experience overview right now, which shows that only through multi-stakeholderism you can solve these issues because it's vitally difficult aspect of the problematic issues and how it's also the part of the protection of the rights, also as with the state of the internet and also the translation, because the development of the digital market is part of the perspective. So the consumers segment of e-commerce have the following situation. Today is the special district during pandemics. They started to selling through internet, different stores, different social networks. In this situation, the level of fraud by some fraud on the internet has increased a lot, and the money is stolen from the accounts of the bank accounts of the consumers, the users, and they do it also the digital channels of the internet. Why does it happen like this? In Ukraine, for key aspects of consumer bank, we have the legislation on protection of rights of consumers, and that is also touching internet communication networks. There is the matter of personal data protection, also the law on e-commerce, or the level of fulfilling legislation has dropped and equal to zero. I sent my presentation to one of the points, but if you want, you can share it to your colleagues. We have analyzed the features of e-commerce that most part of transactions on the internet, even their registration is very low. Behind the internet shop, we don't know, if it's enterprise company or which company is it. It's always, also they are at things and they will also number of counts results on the internet. We have researched one of the sample of the toy of the for children where the level of that was 100 times higher than it was supposed to be, but we do not have the possibility to trace this chain of fraud or schemes. And now the most important, the protection of intellectual property rights of producers when their products are in the market of Asia, for the past year, they've had very big changes of legislation and regulation of e-commerce market and providing security of personal data, and of course the right of taxation. Because there is this form of identifying where certain transactions to be taxable or not. That's why right now Asian countries where there are big number of users, they use the money of our person you have to pay tax. In countries, the American companies, they see their market there, but they don't just that because there's no single legal opinion in the world. By the way, often the questions asked about the participation of providers and popularity and on some illegal basis. So if the platform or the internet shop does not respond to some complaints of the consumers or sales content or some dangerous products, then having the information about this, the provider is blocked the access to such a source. If such requirements are not met, then the provider is responsible for the third-party regulator, as they experience in Asia, for example. So indeed, this element is quite interesting and very grateful that you have invited us, because indeed the number of replied complaints from Ukraine is 5%. But experts advise like number of 25% of retail sales on the internet through the internet. So the bulk of the market is huge. Lots of problems. The discussions, public discussions,
Because the business simply does not want to use these digital solutions for reporting on the product, issuing electronic receipts. They don't want to become public, transparent, so they're using digital solutions, and at the same time, they want to use these digital networks to stay in the shadow and generate high profits at the expense of the total breach of legislation all over the attention. So I will definitely be glad if you find some common language and it will be possible to bring our opinions to the stakeholders and players of telecom markets. So I'm so grateful to you, Mr. That I have a clarifying question. So you referred to Asian experience, other countries. So we today talk about integration to this unified digital space. I was about to unfortunately God and in case if one option for my communication, I still do have so many answers because you're right, protection is wrong. When it comes to integration of different to the unified digital market of Europe, what is still lagging? So, today we even once about Ukrainians actually business because of its 20th members list whole countries. Anyway, which threads are there? Like I buy something again, it was a fraud, like something can you put evidence in this is a separate topic. This one, so please. The thing is that we really have two problems. So for the consumers using electronic commerce, buying something abroad, and our consumer rights protection bodies will not help today because they don't have the direct communication. We're not the part of the market. The mechanisms of consumer rights protection in European market are clearly written. So there's a system that I'm trying to popularize in Ukraine, but unfortunately, I did not get any support. The system of online regulation of disputes or online settlement of disputes between the commercial operation parties. So this allows consumers not to waste time and money on settlement of any kind of dispute. And secondly, minimum expenses. The state is actually throwing this burden away because the third party is settling between the seller and actually the consumer. So our business today does not understand the risks that we have in front of it due to full ignorance of GDPR. GDPR is not just the European Union. It's not just for them. It's not just for European consumers. So the law is following the consumer. If the consumer's rights is violated in other countries, for example, not European Union countries, these sellers would be held liable. How exactly? Well, it depends on the country. Still, the mechanism, I don't know how it works. But when the legislation stipulates this, so of course, today our regulators must take care of. So if we go online to get the business, we need to have an online protection system as well, like the European Union system. It's really interesting how it functions, how it's functioning, how it works. But EU says that the first link of this settlement between the seller and the consumer, that there's a strict liability for any consumer's rights violation in this segment. I have so many examples today in Asian countries, in the US. Fake feedback, fake rating of the product. Same we have in Amazon, or for example, in a couple of days, just a level of positive feedback for some Chinese product that goes up like triples even, and fraudsters, they know how to actually see the system. And in order to counteract this fraud, we need to have rules. In Ukraine, we don't have it. We have a couple of networks, a couple of internet resources. They have this independent system of rating or feedback system. These should not be moderated for someone's benefit. We must have some insurance funds to compensate even damage, reimburse the damage to the consumer if the seller somehow avoided responsibility and does not want to regulate the situation. So basically, a lot of practices are there, and the Consumers International Organization, Consumers International, the organization that protects consumers' rights, actually stresses on that. When the data, personal data of consumers are used for targeting, for example, the Internet of Things, without your consent, actually sends your data elsewhere to some third party, to some resources. These are being processed, and you become subject for spam, for commercials, for anything, any kind of actions towards you. And remember the Facebook campaign when British Analytica received a huge number of data on consumers. These are real risks that we have consumers. So consumers are easily manipulated, and they are the least protected subjects of marketplace. And so in order to avoid this, the state must raise the awareness. Different campaigns that missing during mechanisms of protection. We cannot sell anonymously a product, any representative of the business. We cannot sell anonymously and put any kind of liability if the rights were violated. It's a consumer, but we have this all happening to anything, and really, this is problem number one, and I do think that we need to regulate it because we have some agreements with the EU. Let's see, of course, we have some practices. If Asia does have some practices, well, let's take Asian practices. Okay. within the e-commerce sector, Asian market is already far away from us, so they're leaders. So we simply need to take their practices as well. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm so grateful. We are ready now. Well, then actually, we can't have your video. Would like you to join us. So I just found out that how we actually did which is our organization communication and regulation policy. And the transitions were after 17 months of but finally these transitions on the side of capitalism will never actually take this work. There's not say that we did it because we did not trust other entrepreneurs that give this food. It's good also for presentation. This is 2 years. Plan already goes off, and nothing there to talk about it. So, Alexis Minette, I guess, will tell us about your digital services. And still, I have a question to Mr. Sultan. How exactly can we actually decide translation? How can we make decision? Translation is very important. How can a foundation or organization to actually trick up by background, not just decide on the previous events? So, thank you, and you may start. Thank you so much. And actually, I'm so happy that I did part in this discussion. It should be open discussion. And I just want to note a couple of things. Something that was mentioned. You mentioned the Renaissance Foundation discussion, the analysis of creation of the so it it's not the Renaissance Foundation itself, that was support the key economics, school of economics, their experts, they have already some achievements, and we are about to present this research. I'm sorry if I changed a couple of gadgets, and maybe still there, and like the microphones are working. So the Renaissance Foundation actually initiated this still have some technical problems. So all gadgets are open. There's a problem like Okay, if you do talk slower, so maybe without video it's better. Well, something. Okay, then. Okay, yes, definitely better. Definitely. Okay, so we have some technical problems. Without echo or again with it? Is it okay right now? Okay, Miss Oksana, right now we don't see you and can hear you. And I do hope that you are very well right now. Uh, Digital integration, announce it. So we wanted to select those civic organizations to help us to implement the association agreement. Announced another competition recently aimed at digital different. So truly, this is also aspect of European discussion may be something colleagues with them and to tell them and telecom services as presentation.
And Ukraine is to fulfill the update 4 years after the beginning of application of these provisions. So as of January 2016, it means that by the end of 2019, as Julia had mentioned about this, we really have, it's about the direct implementation. It's clear for us that it has to be provision on the local specifics. To achieve this, it's clear to all the pieces that were, first of all, the dialogue of stakeholders in all these tenders that we hope we emphasize on the dialogue is important. And any analytical development has been envisaged, and the public advocacy, having dialogue with the main stakeholders, also are more powerful and less powerful, not only small business, but also employees. And that's very important because I come to the previous speaker, the interests of consumers, especially in the European regulation, is that which as compared to our regulation is of a completely different quality. It's not about interests of the consumers, but especially things that refer to the digital direction, data protection, GDPR. As for those aspects, I would like to add that clear that stakeholders have many disputes or questions as I understand it, and this discussion do not have the European representatives, but I think that I completely support those efforts. That I know many other representatives of the Ukrainian government are making, including Julia Haracha, to involve the European expertise for the assessment because in order to give a good quality to those disputes. We can't hear you. Can you hear me? Hello? Oh, dear Oksana, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you, but you're echoing. So I beg your pardon, but your colleagues, I thought that I used to have a problem. I think it's my problem because I could hear all the other things very well. Maybe it's the problem with my gadget or maybe the connection problem, I'm not sure. And to complete, to finish, what I said that it's really the dynamics in which European legislation is developing very fast. A European digital strategy that places big ambitions and Digital Service Act that will replace the Directive of Commerce and the GDPR. Well, they will be updated. So we have to catch up with European Union if we want to integrate. Thank you. Sorry for. You know what? I think that everything is. I have turned on everything right. I don't think it's my, you know, my technical problem that I was echoing. Are we on air? And maybe just Oksana is listening. It's hard to say. Seems we have 13 people in chat, so we can hear you. But I think that Oksana hasn't connected her sound. I beg your pardon for some technical issues. At first, I stopped hearing Brazil, and then I was out of connection myself. So can you hear me now? Yes, yes. Dmitro? Dmitro, can you hear me? Right here. Dear Dmitro? I can see him. Bella, I'm really sorry. I don't know what to do about this. Dear, oh, he finished. Okay, then I'm really sorry. I'm very grateful, indeed, because this question is very important. And of course, providing all stakeholders, involving all of them, all the stakeholders, is very difficult and very important. And I hope that Anita will tell us in more detail. Unfortunately, Ukraine without grants, which the organization is non-ITER, we are not ashamed of it. I'm very grateful to organizations that are giving us grants and that to report that our grants are successful. We can demonstrate some findings, for example, approval of the law on electronic communication, but unfortunately I can't demonstrate it. Now I would like to report to overseas the Maniaka, the representative of FCC, the organization that, in my opinion, should not cover my stakeholders approach. Dear Alexei, I asked you to give the position of privacy on the Digital Service Act, but I would like to ask for that I would like to ask that question on our topic of 30%. I know that very active in this work, and there were important issues that he has commented, and his comments had an impact on the approval of the amendments at wording. So I'm very grateful for your assessment perhaps of what exactly was said. How much does this refer to Ukraine and operate? As you are doing so many studies on in the internet, maybe only from your information we can understand what is happening to internet in Ukraine. So at first I will speak in Russian, because otherwise it's not going to look good. So as for only our status showing something, that's not true. Of course, I would be pleased to say that yes, you're so cool and the only ones who can actually do something, but it's not like that. We are doing something. We have certain things that show good statistics on Ukraine, but we're not the only ones who are doing this. And I have to say that in the plan, technically what's done, what's done by the ministry is a quite reasonable development. There are questions to interpretation. If there's a village and those companies, data which are used, don't see anything in the sewage, doesn't mean that there's nothing there. No, it doesn't. Questions of data interpretation are open and you can discuss them, but technically speaking, it wasn't backward, and it gives a good foot for speculation and good developments inside of Ukraine. Let's start with that. As for before moving to discussion of the draft law on electronic communication and the Digital Services Act, I want to draw your attention to general problems of these two documents. Not even problems of the documents, but the problems in their preparation. It just happened so that internet emerged recently, especially recently from the point of view of mass, realization, when internet stopped being some technical toy that exists somewhere, but it's the toy that somebody just heard about, but it has become an important component of everyday life. This happens in front of us, and it's a problem because as a result, the majority of people do not realize how it all works. I do not mean technical details. I mean the understanding, I don't mean the understanding of how the protocols work, but at least the understanding of that this system is multi-level from the point of view of the internal organization, and understanding of the fact that these levels, they and understanding that these levels are, separated or divided, not clear for everyone. And this problem is on the level of state and non-state forms.
I'm sorry, I just cannot hold myself. You had this fridge mentioned yesterday. Okay, when you discussed critical infrastructure, we had the fridge. Like whether the fridge is critical infrastructure object or not. So I think all our discussion of critical infrastructure in Ukraine will definitely start from the fridge, just to be an example. Okay. I'm not a professional joke maker. I'm not a professional comedian, so okay. I think I will give support today. Okay. Yes. Okay. When we come to metaphors again, using the metaphors. So when we say, for example, about the road infrastructure, I'm sorry, about logistics in general. So delivery of products from A to B and delivering people, moving, commuting, vehicles, roads, and so on. Each of us understands that road construction is just one thing, and designing the roads, how to design the roads, designing the vehicles, another thing. And vehicles, by the way, we have different kinds of vehicles, and it's clear that if I have Renault Logan, let's say, okay, I will never have a ton of sand brought by this car, so it's not a car for that kind of load. So if we have a company building roads, it's quite strange to require the company to build a road where we limit certain types of transport to move on it. So a level of discussion when it comes to a level of discussion of logistic issues, purely logistics. So breaking into levels, requirements formulation, it's clear because everyone can see it. These are things that are clear to everyone, including people who prepare certain provisions and certain standards, legislative acts, and so on. When we talk about internet, we don't have this understanding. This is a clear problem. This is clearly a problem, a big one. Let's start from DSA, okay? The Digital Research Act. So IGF-UA is an organization, membership organization, and sometimes it's really hard to guarantee. But there is consensus in it concerning certain issue. They're trying to use some careful formulations when it comes to assessment of certain acts, documents, and so on. But in this case, this is one of a rare example. This is one of there are examples where when RICC launch an official opinion and express concerns. And please draw your attention that there is a confusion between the levels of interaction. Confusion regarding these levels and what is described in the document. In this opinion, official opinion creates a threat for the nucleus. For example, for the operators who actually ensure communication, operators who ensure the system's functioning, dominate system DNS, and unfortunately, same happened when we were preparing the draft law on electronic communications in Ukraine. We cannot put in the law some technical stuff in the law. We just need to describe it by general words for no one to guess what that is. And as a result, we actually have pretty ambiguous interpretations. I talk about the law on electronic communications. I think we mostly managed to cope with it in the law. We mostly managed to eliminate it, but the problem is still the same. We need to have some general formulations which later will somehow overlap it. If we actually use this word metaphor again, the search for stolen cars is mixed with I don't know, with the asphalt composition, because we cannot combine these things. It's all about logistics, actually. But this is the level that we have, the level of understanding. We mixed everything in one basket, and this is the common problem for Ukraine and European Union and other countries as well. I think Alexander will tell you more about it. So this mixture, this combination, it's also dragged to the law. So concerning the Digital Services Act, we really claim we want the state bodies, we want the state power bodies, those organizations which are involved in the preparation to separate what we call the core of the internet itself and service functions. We want you to be very careful with the requirements of operators involved in the core of internet. When it comes to instant fulfillment of the requirements related to content, today actually, if Digital Services Act was adopted in that version, it was presented at the end of August. If it happened then, the European internet segment would be blocked very easily with DDoS, with, let's say, legal DDoS. So this is something that process for organization. We talk about 10,000 operators, communication operators in the region. It's not okay for us, and we are so concerned with that. And we officially issued this document. We presented it, so it exists. It's there. And we saw the support on behalf of other actors for our position, for our opinion. We'll just see how it evolves. But so far, concerning the law on electronic communications, unfortunately, in my opinion, there is a systemic problem in it. We can fight with this problem, and partially it's eliminated. And I took part in this process. We were communicating with Alexander Fidienko. We were looking for some consensus, try to find a consensus in the issues where I took part, so I did not intervene. There where I wasn't the expert, but concerning the infrastructure, the logical infrastructure of internet, that's where I was involved. So the systemic problem of the law is that we have this heritage exists, have the existing legislation, the current legislation, and a lot of bylaws. And we just need to combine it with harmonization with the EU acts. And we have this heritage from the Soviet Union and the law on communication, which is itself the heritage. This is the phone practice, as I call it. So it's a heritage of that phone practice. So legislation did not take into account the internet existence as an entity, these package networks, their own laws, technical like standards, and basically transferring all this legislation to what we have today. And break everything instantly and rebuild it in one day, this is almost impossible. So the most important thing, it's really risky. It's really risky. It's a high risk. And the phone reality we live in, actually, we need to use the European initiatives. We need to combine it somehow. European initiatives. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just missing some words right now. So, to translate it in Russian, I was trying to say right now is that they're trying to be out of the technology, disconnected with the technology. And what we have as a result, we have a document where we have in one basket like everything at once, and the frequency resource management and implementation of enumeration, phone story, enumeration is over. All the heritage basically that we got must be in the document, but it's like we're trying to get rid of it, but it must be there in the document anyway, the enumeration. And still, this enumeration somehow magically taking into account the initial formulations, it's also covering the internet as well. Because if we just read the definition, the addresses are the part of the enumeration, and the enumeration management, geographical numbers, and so on, and all these things, all this somehow, surprisingly, this all, basically, this old school stuff somehow they try to relate it to internet, but it doesn't work. So after these long discussions, it would be a great idea, I think, to actually put it down how it works on the internet. So the enumeration is also related to phone entities and addresses, so it fully relates to internet. Bring it in one sentence and describe which principles function here and there, and yeah. With presentation of potential solutions for some obsolete old problems, I will not even mention these. We did not find support from other representatives and members of the working groups and the committee. So how it all finished, the idea was heard. Okay, people heard us. Certain consensus was there. Consensus is always about balance. And what was the consensus about? So they added a small piece concerning the infrastructure stuff, that something that relates to infrastructure does not relate to the core of internet. So the core of internet entities are not governed by this law. And that is how it all was taken out of the front. So I'm so sorry, but I just need to interrupt you. We don't have enough time. So I will refer to you, to Mikhail, after this for to hold separate discussions, separate line sessions and roundtables. I finally got another joke from you. Maybe it's an old joke, but still we will use it. So I've noted some of your ideas. In a couple of minutes before the end of session, I will present the participants. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Right now, I'd like to pass the floor to Mikhail, representative of ICANN. I apologize so much because I want you to tell how the multi-stakeholder approach works in ICANN, and like you have 5 or 7 minutes, and it's impossible to use such just minutes. So please, Mikhail, give us a second lecture on my multi-stakeholder approach, how actually we can organize it, so we have separate events successfully function, and maybe some advice for Ukraine. Thank you, Oksana. Do you actually get me right now? You can sound very well. So you know a couple of words for NXT. I will use Russian. My opinion is not very well so far. But first of all, I can have some called government engagement. Like at the same time, 90% analyzing legislation and different initiatives, governmental initiatives all around the world. And so ICANN has its own document to analyze Digital Services Act. So many of the provisions in this document actually relate to something that I mentioned, but maybe the interpretation can deal with a different perspective because ICANN works different.
As for multi-stakeholder approach, here I will also move away from the plan that I had made, but I have prepared another material because now I understand the main topic of the session. That's why I will change it focus. Not about how it works, but about some major problems of this approach and those obstacles that are to be overcome in this way, which will probably turn out to be useful for everything that is planned in the Ukraine internet field. Multi-stakeholder approach, it's a classical approach, giving with the consideration of all the interests of all the stakeholders. So the main problem of such approach is the problem is institutional, because institutes, I understand from the economic point of view. So it's like an organization that's implementing or institute as the way of interaction between some notions. But all the problems of this approach are institutional. So what I mean is, how is it implemented by ICANN? When policies is developed, any decisions made, when compliance of this decision, there's a community that consists of the different representatives of stakeholders, from the state till the end users, and the academia, business, non-governmental organization, commercial organization. And one of the main problems of the ideological problems of such approach is that very often we have to be somehow additionally sure or confident that this or that person or organization that participates in the discussion really represents the interests of that society. It's a gigantic problem. And some person comes and says, I would love to participate in the development of some policy, and I will be on the side of the user, how can you make sure that he's really on the side of the user or protect interests of the user? And therefore, often the representatives of such interests are some organizations that which have developed a number of applications for quite a while that have an internal So Mikhail also disappeared. He got disconnected. I will reconnect. One second. Hello? Can you hear me? Sorry, I was disconnected. So, and the cell refers to the state. In every state, there is a big number of departments, and they are all, you know, having their own tasks. Can be the economic or informational security, or antitrust legislation. The question of to say that the interests of the state are preserved is guaranteed by one body of again, it's the state committee. It's also a big problem. Another big problem that we face, that the notion itself of accounting interests of stakeholders requires at least being aware that those side organizations that stand for their own interests and try to be always established to policy making, they have to be aware what obstacle is on the way for their interests to be taken into consideration. For example, when they contradict the interests of another group of stakeholders. In order to solve such problems, such institutional problems for the experience exchange, the Internet Governance Forum is needed. This is the main function. But the forum itself is just the one event and that takes place once a year, and that's not enough. There must be some platforms for exchange of opinions on the regular basis during the entire period. And it is also the institute. It's also the way of communication and exchange between different platforms is also the institute. So this institute also needs to be developed. Now I will sum up because I don't have much time. I can say that unfortunately, this is the case when there is no one solution, because every problem is solved in a separate problem. Well, I can, for example, have some structure right now that is used in the society. But as for information security questions, I like that it's not a state, but it's a process. That's why the same can apply to multi-state stakeholder is, that it's not a state, it's a continuous process based on development and establishment of the institute. So the session that we had today, that made me move away from my initial plan, is that the main task of development of such approaches to regulate processes and to regulate internet, global internet in Ukraine, and it has to be integrated into European regulated space. And the first main task in this case is establishing the institute that can support this stuff. That's in brief. This topic is endless, of course, but trying to be brief, that's what you get. Make me thank you a lot. I have recorded a short message, and in a few minutes I will read all our messages. I'm very grateful for very brief action, and I'm asking online event, to explain what multi-stakeholder approach is and why it can't have to be a single model of application. And now I would like to give the word to Safi, going to tell why or in which cases this approach is not relevant. And I would like to say that we also want to have a more strict representative of the internet society, but somehow it didn't happen. And I think that without this discussion is not very effective. And maybe Alexander should comment it. Thank you so much. I will do it without video because then I'll disconnect it. So the main problem, I think, in Russia with these laws appeared as a result of operators of connection and all those that we call stakeholders. They did not participate actively in the work on the laws at the end of the night when the internet has only emerged. And as Alexei noticed, that regulation in Russia is even worse than in Ukraine. Is sitting on the basis of the telephone regulation, and that doesn't work. And the items of law doesn't work, or that's where it origins from. Unfortunately, operators were just making money, and the civil society and academia had their own costs. That's why they have adopted a lot of laws, which we have now. Apart from that, unfortunately, we have active imitation, professional, civil society, and if on adoption, in adoption of all the laws was just both were stupid, and then they made another round of stupid laws with more serious consequences, and different associations came up, like Russian Association of Electronic Communication. When they say we have to regulate, we have to fight crime, we have to protect children. But it was clear that fighting crime, which is very good, happened where there was light, but not where they actually were. Because breaks from their structures, cables are here, and roads have have it's easier to regulate those you can see right for a test here. But unfortunately, I have to say that I want to say that Russian regulation media is going in the direction of getting the initiative in self-regulation that NCC does. Fortunately, only when now they pay attention that something is wrong with the state governance. That's because in the Western Europe there was the Digital Services Act, and now the territory is actually we have a charter item that was organized by the governments of the internet in their time, and said that we are the leading ones here, that but to support the question, you had to express disagreement with the current position of the government, and all those others of the internet, they changed their rules of the game, and in the situation with IPAN, unfortunately, your mind, the founder of the council has had the representatives of the government, and then that was a question: why did you have a meeting? Not openly, but you just came one day. He replied, "Oh, it just happened like this." So we shouldn't hope that abroad such organizations can help us. Like Western Europeans say that we have no such problem. Also, I would like to warn you and to wish you to your working association, not, because if they, stop their activity, and there will appear another session that will take your place. I don't have much time. I guess I will not compare your initiative with the Russian initiative, but please find it that in any way you're trying to help some books that have been adopted in Russia already, and they are not active. It's not that they're just not active, they are being abused by the fraudsters from the law enforcement agencies and so on. So there's always the possibility to check and say that last year I had similar to this, which is in Great Britain, and I think I still envy you that your multi-stakeholder approach is a lot more multi-stakeholder than us, that your MPs are ready to communicate, the representatives of government are ready to communicate, and you serve as an example of how it can work in the population that is part of Europe or not hiding. Thank you so much.
Alexander, thank you so much. Thank you. We heard that Asian approach is a very progressive one. We work with that as well. It's very, very happy for experience. We'll definitely do something. I did not. Yesterday we had this governance process and the regulation work. I hope that in Ukraine we will not miss 100% of the regulation. I really want you to support my statement. So basically, we're stealing the time from other section. So can you fix that on there, please? I'll send it to all the speakers in half an hour. Your integration process with Ukraine. Maybe someone would like to comment on something. Mikhail. Oksana, hi. I just want to clarify the word, clarify the terms regulation and governance. I use the regulation word itself in a very narrow context when it comes to creation of laws because regulation. This is just legal. Basically, we need to take into account the opinions of stakeholders. Governance, internet governance, is not a legislative process. That's why the word governance is not passed on. Many think that it's not state or some other. Actually, well, this is just calculation. we cannot avoid it. Because it means a little bit different other entities, different from Mikhail. Putin said yesterday that Russia will use. So I'm sorry about this question. So again, we'll have a separate discussion on attitude regulation, governance, and so on. Ukraine is integration of Ukraine to digital market Europe, which will other sectors Ukraine integration to Europe. And we use consumers. Requirement insurance should be created to reimburse the damage to consumers. The raising campaign. Mr. Shula, I'll call Mr. Shula because I had nothing. We need to understand the essence of core of internet during the development of European and Ukrainian legislative acts. We need to separate requirements with core of internet and its service functions. Get rid of phone traffic projects. So we may not have one single model, multi-stakeholder approach. We need to create relevant institutions. The risk of fake multi-stakeholder entities is there. I'm sorry for being that brief, but I'll write to everyone who registered this speaker, and in an hour or in an hour and a half, I'm still waiting for that message. Colleagues, objections, anything? Thank you so much, and thank you, and see you at the next Internet Governance Forum.